everybody, to another episode of The Art of Being You. Now, here we still have the relationship series coming on, and I am Nancy Haynes. And like the other relationship series episodes, I have my husband here, Mr. Matthew Haynes.
Hello.
Wow, guys, this is how he is. A man of a few words. Not exactly. I'm sure he's going to have a lot for this episode, which is self-sabotage in relationships. This is a really good one. I think for me, especially when it comes to clients and when they come in for a particular situation that they want to talk about, as we work through things, it ends up being sometimes that it's their own self-sabotage in relationships. And we're not going to go into the self as far as the relationship with yourself or career or business. We're going to focus in relationships. So this is going to be a really good introspect for people to really look at, like how their own experiences are in relationships.
Yeah, so this is something I think we all probably at some stage have done, consciously or unconsciously, and there's patterns in our behaviour, and at certain stages I think we have to investigate and understand why these things keep reoccurring in relationships, and what you're gaining from them.
This is very true. You know what I think is, even though we're going to be talking about relationships romantically, but I feel like a lot of these patterns also kind of flow into relationships, even at work or like friendships, where the same pattern that you have, you almost use it for every other relationship. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think it all comes back to the individual and those same habits, those same things that they do to protect themselves in friendships. They do romantically, they could do at work. If they feel threatened, they might behave the same way in all three instances. So there'll be lots of crossover.
Awesome. Okay, so let's start with defining self-sabotage. And what it is actively trying to ruin your own relationship, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. So it's kind of like you standing in the way of you and your own happiness, like a sense of protection.
Yeah, I think it could be a sense of protection, or it could be not feeling worthy. You're protecting yourself, or maybe you don't feel you deserve the thing that you have, so you sabotage it for that reason as well.
Yes, and that's what we're going to get into in the second part is, why do we self-sabotage in our relationships? And I think for a lot of people who are listening, to have that introspect is going to be really interesting to see how people react. I think even for our own sake and in our own relationship, we realized in conversations that we were self-sabotaging, I think more at the beginning because of all the unknowns. And so when you're working with unknowns, I think that's the part that I think a lot of the self-sabotaging patterns come up so much easier, because that's where you've never navigated some of those feelings. And so you start kind of just doing your own thing. So why do we do it? What do you think? What's one of the reasons why you think that we self-sabotage?
I think insecurity would be very high on a lot of people's lists. I think if you are insecure and you're not, you might not necessarily like yourself, you find it difficult to understand why someone would like you, even though you enter in a relationship with them, subconsciously you will start to drive a wedge or make them prove themselves how much they love you, because you don't actually love yourself that much.
I can honestly say, at least for men, I think some of them, when they are dating and they do they kind of overcompensate. They want to have a showy car, or they always talk about themselves when you meet them, and you're just like, oh gosh. And I think a lot of it is they are self-sabotaging, but I don't even think they realize it because they don't want to step into that place of uncomfortable feelings.
I, I I'm going to disagree. I think
Ooh, no, he didn't.
I think the showy car and talking about themselves is more looking for acceptance. So I have a car that is desirable, so I want people to accept me. I'm going to talk a lot about myself, so you listen and hopefully you like what you hear and therefore you accept me. I think that that's dealing with that side of insecurity. I think the self-sabotage part is I don't really like myself. I'm insecure because I was cheated on previously, and so every girl's going to cheat on me. Therefore, subconsciously, if I can ruin this relationship before the person cheats on me, I have protected myself. Although I've not healed, I've managed to not let that wound get exposed again, if that makes sense. I think that's the side of insecurity that links to self-sabotage.
Okay, that makes sense. I can see that point. Which brings us actually to the first point is why do we self-sabotage? One of the biggest reasons is low self-esteem and low self-worth, which is where it comes in. I think you kind of said it, but that's the part that I was talking about. Like when, you have conversations back in the single days when, you have like conversations with guys and all they're talking about is, how many businesses they've opened and whatever stupid stuff. And there's no substance. And I think, at least for myself, because I've always been very self-aware from the many, many bad experiences that I had, it was very easy to catch that, like, okay, he has a low self-esteem, or like he's not going to let me get further as far as more depth into him because he's going to try to show me the glittery stuff at the front so that I don't pay attention or even want to ask for who he really is. Yeah. Okay, cool. So the second one, and I think you brought it up, was protection against rejection. I think do you think for guys it's easy to accept it? Like, do you guys talk about it?
Protection against rejection? No, I guess because generally guys are the macho alpha. Well, not all, everyone, but in the relationship they want to be the alpha male, etc. So I don't think men probably have these discussions enough, and two, you don't actively say that you're protecting yourself. I would say generally what you do is you want to be one of the boys, so you go out drinking all the time because this woman's not going to change me, so I'm still going to be a lad. I don't want to miss out on going on the boys' holidays or whatever. And what you're doing is you're trying to prove yourself to your friends or whatever, and protecting yourself from getting too deep into there's a couple of things going on there, but you're protecting yourself from getting too deep into the relationship, but you're not actively knowing. I think it's more of a subconscious, unconscious type thing where you think you're just behaving in a way that isn't being dominated by the woman you're with, so you justify it to yourself when actually what you're doing is sabotaging the relationship because you're not giving it enough attention.
Okay, so I have a question for you, and your friends might not like this, but so here's a question, maybe for all guys to really think about this. When you guys are sitting there talking to your friends and everybody's just having a good chat, when you recognize that a friend of yours is self-sabotaging a relationship, do you call them out on it? Or do you like talk to them about it? Or do you just like, well, that's his life and I'm not going to get involved?
It depends. It depends circumstance. Who is the friend? How open they are to receiving feedback? What are they doing? What is their behaviour? Some friends you can have very frank and honest discussions with, and you can say like, look, she's an amazing woman, and I don't think you're quite treating her right. You can say that to some friends, and some friends will respect you and listen and go, okay. Other friends, they just want to hear the good stuff, and they don't want to get into that depth of conversation. So they don't, if you do say it to them, you might not speak to them again for a while because they might get upset. And then other friends, absolutely that ego is too big, and they don't want to get involved in that type of conversation, so you don't even broach it.
That's actually really good. I'm gonna say in friendship circles, most of my friends, at least, we're all mostly very self-aware. So I think, at least as far as myself, I know when when I hear a friend sharing a story, or when they try to play it up or play it down, it's easy for me to have that conversation with them. But I always ask permission. I'm always like, can I tell you something? And then if they're open to it, cool. If they tell me I don't want to hear it, then I don't step in. I think there's a boundary when it comes to friendships, when it comes to that. But I think you're right, because there's some friends where I have seen it, but I've never said anything because I know that if I go there, their ego is going to be affected. And I know that they're not going to be self-aware or as mature to really have that conversation.
And I think you also have to gauge, if someone is acting in a way that says they are protecting themselves, and you've pointed out like low self-esteem and low self-worth, if you then pick at that and expose it to them and maybe pull it from their unconscious to their conscious, that might be terrifying for them, and they might react really badly because they're not ready quite yet to go on that journey. So it's a very difficult thing to approach because they're already protecting themselves without knowing it.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question about when we first started dating, did you ever self-sabotage it?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I think I'm now aware because at the time I wasn't. But I had, I was insecure. I had quite low self-esteem. I lacked some sense of self-identity to a point. And that's concerning, and you don't like to sit with your own thoughts, and you don't like to, you don't feel too good. So when you meet someone and that say they're amazing, you're really into them, whatever, but you're not too into yourself, it becomes quite scary. You can, if you feel like perfection is important, you start to project. If you don't feel self-worth, so you're trying to improve things, or you pass that problem off to them. So I would project my issues onto you. I would give you those problems to let you solve them because I wasn't consciously able to figure my issues out. So here you go, have those problems. But that's overwhelming, and I know that's overwhelming because it's overwhelming me. So then potentially you'll just say, no, do you know what, I've had enough. And that's the end of the relationship. But I haven't had to deal with the problems I have, therefore I've protected myself in a weird way. So the self-sabotage has worked. Obviously, years later, and we're a few years married, etc. I had to go a different route to get to this point, and you have to go through them, and even professional help and talk to people and things like that. Further to that point, you can, when the first day you arrived, I went for beers with the boys. The very first day you landed from LA, I had a friend over and I went out. Probably not the smartest thing I've ever done, but that, looking back, that's the reality of it. And I could have made much smarter choices. But was that me trying to let you know that you're not going to change me or whatever, when all I needed to do was have a conversation with you and say, look, we're in this together, and etc. And being adults about it. But I wasn't conscious enough to have that exchange with you. So yeah, there's many an example.
I think even criticism, like it's so easy to fall into like critiquing your partner. Like, oh, you don't do this enough. You don't eat healthy. You don't do this. You don't like it's so easy to, like you were talking about, like I'm going to push all my problems onto you and you have to fix it kind of thing.
But when you're insecure and you're not feeling good, if you can then pick at the other person, pick at that, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Or you should do this. Slowly but surely you're dragging them down. And then, you maybe their light isn't shining as bright, so you feel less insecure because you've managed to pull them down to a level that makes you feel comfortable.
Ooh, that's a golden nugget right there. That was a big aha moment, I think, for a lot, even for me, but I'm sure for a lot of people where you don't realize that that's what you do, like in a relationship, that when you do that, you bring that other person down as well. And so you kind of feel less of that, worthiness where you're like, you're going to come down to my shitty part. And then you're like, okay, well, we're both here. I'm not going to say mine until, because it's one of the points that I'm going to bring up in a second. So I'll explain my self-sabotage, my part in the relationship in a second. But another one is drama. Like I feel like a lot of relationships, especially that are immature, I think you self-sabotage through drama. Like, is he or she still going to be interested? Let's see if they still are, kind of thing, where they'll create it just to kind of see that chaos. I used to hear it a lot in LA, and not from close friends, but like when you would get together with different groups of women, like sometimes you would hear the girls talking about it, like, I did this, to him on purpose, and I just wanted to see how he reacted. And I'm kind of like, why would you do that? Like in my head, of course. And then, once obviously more and more I got into, learning about self-sabotage in different parts of your life, I realized that it was a form of this self-sabotage, and it's deeper than that. So it made me have a little bit more compassion to them.
It's almost like a test. I'm going to, throw this out there and see how that person reacts. But I know it's going to be pretty hard for them. So you're talking about these girls in LA. So they're going to challenge this guy in some way, shape or form. And they're pretty sure he might fail. If they create enough drama, you can use an example, which this is kind of a layered example. The guy has female friends. It's LA. There's lots of parties going on, whatever. It's a very social place. He might know 3 or 4 girls that he's really close with, but not romantically. Now, if I'm a female who's insecure, I'm going to create some drama by either trying to push those girls out or tell him he can't see them. And it's a challenge for him. I'm trying to make him prove, that himself to me. But if it's a non-negotiable with him, he doesn't want to give up his friends, I've self-sabotaged the relationship. But I've protected my insecurity because maybe those girls made me feel insecure.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I read this sentence in an article, and it made me really think about how many times have we done it in like different relationships that we've been in, even from the very beginning, when you're trying to still kind of like navigate like what does it mean to be in a relationship. And of course, the only example we ever got was from our parents. When we see whatever patterns or behaviors we saw with them, unconsciously and consciously, we have created some of those, And when the comment or the statement that I read was, individuals may not feel that they can get better, so they settle for any attention, affection, and connection, negative or positive. What are your thoughts?
That's an interesting one. Read that again.
I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it again. Individuals may not feel that they can get better. So they settle for any attention, affection, and connection, negative or positive.
So that's around self-worth, right? You don't feel that you deserve more, or so on and so forth. So you put yourself in a toxic position, which is sabotaging yourself from truly being happy, but it serves you in some way.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But I read that and I thought, ooh, how many times have we not done that? Like in different relationships. I know I did at the beginning when I first started dating. Even though I knew that that wasn't something that I was looking for long term, because I wasn't confident in myself, even if it was just that attention that I was getting, it was like, okay. And you just kind of go along with it. But you're just there because you don't feel good at that time. Like, it's like that temporary thing.
Yeah, what sprung to mind there is there's a video on YouTube about the crazy to hot ratio in women, and like where a woman sits. You can look this up on YouTube. I'm sure many people have seen it. It's a guy with a whiteboard, and what's a safe zone and what's not, and the hotter they are, the crazier they are. And that almost feels like a bit like that. Say, for example, you use that example. You're going to go for the hot chick in the nightclub, but the relationship won't last. You've already sabotaged the relationship in using this theory. Not saying that this is accurate and all the rest of it, but just that example.
Yes. So this is my part. So here's another one of why we self-sabotage, which is a massive one for me that I noticed as a pattern in all of my relationships. And it was the fear of commitment, and which then means a loss of freedom. So I absolutely love my freedom. Like I'm a free spirit. I love doing whatever I want to do without having to like check in and ask and all this other stuff. And I think a big part of that comes from my background as far as like a Mexican family. Like my mom can't just go anywhere she wants and not ask my dad or like talk to my dad about it. And I remember her like saying, oh, I really want to go to this concert, but your dad said no. And in my head, I was like, what? Who cares what he says? Like, just go. And she was just like, no, you don't understand. And this is like when I was single. So she's like, you don't understand because you're not married and you're not in a relationship. But I think I took that to the heart so much. It's like ingrained in my blood that I was like, the moment I get into my belief in my head was, if I'm in a relationship, I'm going to lose my freedom. Like, I don't want to fully commit to one person because what if I lose my freedom? So I know for a fact that at the beginning of our relationship, I think I was always 1 foot in and 1 foot out because the whole what if kind of like took over.
I know this for a fact too.
Oh my gosh. But I recognized it until obviously later, but I didn't realize that was so ingrained in me, where it was like the moment I'm in a relationship, I'm going to get that taste of like my, like being tied down with chains, like the ball and chain feeling, which that's why for me, I think for a lot of time, I was like, maybe I'm just not meant to be married. Like I'm just meant to like date somebody, and that way he does whatever he wants and then I get to do whatever I want kind of lifestyle. But I did notice it. I think it was during one of my coaching sessions that I had that my mentor said, when you think of a relationship, what's the first thing that comes to mind? And when I closed my eyes and I thought about it, all I saw was like chains around my wrist. And I just said to her, like, ew, like that makes me feel sick. And we had to work through it and make it to the point where whenever she would ask again about relationships, when I visualized it, I could see it as two like hands holding together, but like in partnership instead of it being like the chains.
So that links back to your point earlier, where taking example from your parents. So you've taken something you've seen there, and you've added it to your belief system. You believe that that's what a relationship is going to be like. You haven't even met the man you're going to be in the relationship with and had the discussion with him whether or not he will mind you going to a concert. You've just assumed, or you've integrated that into your belief system. That's what it's going to be like, and so then you've just continued to protect yourself against it ever since, and that stopped you giving, previous relationships a chance, I guess.
Oh yeah. Like I think I realized it afterwards when when I kind of went through that whole thing and really looked at things differently, when I'm like, oh my gosh, that was the thing. And what's funny is that now that I think about it, anytime a girl would ask me like, what is your issue with like dating? And, it's really hard to date in LA because guys always have all these options and it's just crazy. But I remember always saying, oh, guys here, like, they don't know how to commit. They don't know how to commit. They don't know how to commit. And the more I said that, and then when I finally had that session with my mentor, and then I realized I'm the one that has that. Like, I'm the one that's afraid of commitment. Even though verbally I was saying I want to be in a relationship, like, my heart and soul was like, oh, I don't want to be fully committed. Like, what if I lose my freedom? And so once I changed that belief, that's when like everything changed. The relationships that I had after changed very, very differently. So now we move into, so how do we stop it? How do we stop this self-sabotage? I think one of the very first ones is self-awareness. Big, 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 big is self-awareness. It's, you have to be aware of the patterns that you have while you are in relationships. Like, what is it that keeps coming up in every single, you got to do an inventory of all of your relationships and see what is it that I do in each one of these and why.
Yeah, I can give you an example there. Like, for example, if your first experience of a relationship, the other person cheats on you, you may then decide to cheat first to protect yourself, or you may assume that person's going to cheat on you, so you keep telling them, oh, I don't like, I don't want you to go out, or I don't want you to do this, because you're scared, and then that sabotages the relationship because the other person feels no freedom, or whatever the outcome may be. But if you can take a step and wait, and then have a breath and think, okay, where's that coming from? Okay, this person is a totally different person to the previous person. I don't need to protect myself in the same way. And I guess, yeah, what you say in terms of self-awareness is it's being aware that you need to take that step. Or have you actively picked someone that's the same because you don't want to be in a relationship, and then you've sabotaged it already because you subconsciously how they're going to behave.
Yes, that's really good, actually. That's really good information for people to really think about. Um, Another way to stop it is, which I know it sounds so easy, but it's not as easy as it sounds, is just have honest conversations with your partners. Like, learn to share how you feel, regardless if it's positive or negative. It's easy to tell somebody, oh my gosh, I've been having such a great time with you, and like all that good stuff. But when it comes to something negative, like I don't feel like, we're not talking, or we're not blah, 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 whatever it is that the issue is, I feel like the moment you start kind of putting that in like a secret drawer, like, oh, I don't want to say anything, and you kind of put it away and you put it away and you put it away, it starts creating an unhealthy relationship.
Yeah, but I'm sure there's many steps before you you're comfortable to have those honest conversations, because firstly you have to trust the person you're about to hand that information to, because if you're demonstrating or exposing a weakness or an insecurity to them, and hopefully in a healthy way, so you're not projecting it and hoping they'll fix it for you, but just bringing it to their awareness as it's in your awareness and that you're trying to work on it. If you don't feel you're in a safe place, you might not be able to have that discussion. So I think there's probably quite a lot of work to be done to be able to have that conversation.
I sort of disagree with you. And the reason why is, regardless if I've been dating somebody for a month or two, and if I feel something, it's not about them, it's about me. I want to make it a habit to be able to share what I feel and talk about it, even if the other person is not going to deal with it and they're like, oh gosh, here we go. I don't want to deal with this nagging lady. Like, I'm out. Then, number one, it was never meant to happen. But I think it's more about you, because it's not about the other person. Oh, are they going to receive it like this? Are they equipped to handle it? No. It's about you. Like, you creating that habit that whenever there's a discomfort in a relationship, that you're able to share it and express it. But the thing is that it's going to be for you, not for the other person.
Yeah, but so I'm saying that it is for you, but you may be scared of how it's going to land with the other person and what they might do with that information. So that might stop you from doing it for yourself.
Oh, no, for sure. That's why I just said, when the fact that you're going to say it and you might lose that person, like, that's scary, but it's honoring yourself, because at the end of the day, that person wouldn't be equipped with dealing with you moving forward, So I get it. Totally makes sense. Next one is seeking counseling or professional help. I definitely think this is important, to have somebody like a coach help you through to understand some of these things, because I think we all have blind spots, and that's important to have somebody else shine a light on them, and then it gives you that aha moment for growth.
Yeah, I think a lot of this only gets resolved if you can bounce it off of someone who's qualified to take you on that journey and help you figure it. Because dealing with low self-esteem and self-worth and self-identity and stuff like that, it's not easy. It's not just a conversation you can have with some friends sometimes. Professional help and professional help sounds like you need to talk to a shrink, but and people, especially guys, sometimes don't resonate with that. But from personal experience, talking to someone is a huge help, and can help you make sense of things and unpick patterns and give you clues. You leave clues in your behavior, and they can help reveal some of those clues and push you in a direction to help you understand what they mean.
Yeah, and I think along the way, especially with navigating into areas where, you're not fully comfortable or they're the unknown, and you start seeking that help, or, talking to somebody, a coach, a mentor, somebody that can help you kind of dissect some of these things, I feel like is also having patience with yourself. That's like, for me, one of the biggest ones is you just want to fix it right away. And then it happens again and you're like, oh my gosh, I already worked on this. Like, why is it happening again? But it's not again, it's just in a different level of awareness, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think the other thing is it can act as a mirror, so they can reflect back what you're saying to them, and you challenge yourself then, as opposed to using them to solve your problems again when you speak to someone. They can reflect back. So, for example, you say to them, I'm very insecure, I'm worried she's going to cheat on me. And they say, well, you've been going out quite a lot. Are you worried she's going to cheat, or are you worried that you might cheat? And then all of a sudden you look at your own behavior. And is your own behavior driving because maybe you're seeing it out all the time. Maybe instead of going out all the time, you might decide to go to the gym. And your exposure to this issue is less, and then your sensitivity is less, and then all of a sudden it's less of a problem in your own relationship,
Yep. Agreed.
Just an idea.
Just an idea. Well, that's what we're here for. And the last but not least, how to stop it. I cover part of this in the Dim to Damn Girl online program. So if you guys haven't seen it, it's up. The link is on my Instagram for it. And actually for the month of December, it's at a 90% discount. But in there is a section of relationships and how you define yourself in the relationships. And it really, really helps with a big chunk, as a matter of fact, of this self-sabotage in relationships, which is awesome because you're able to thrive in relationships in such a different way. So we have come to an end on this episode, and I just want to say thank you for sharing your experiences, and I'm sure many people will be able to resonate with what you were sharing.
Oh, thank you, and thank you for the positive feedback we've had recently in the last few weeks. It's much appreciated.
Yes, thank you to everybody who has sent us privately or publicly all the messages. Thank you so very much. And we are trying to get to 1,000 downloads by the end of the year. We're very, very close. So if you like it, share it, comment it, whatever you got to do to help us out. But thank you so very much. And we will see you all in the next episode.